And I just watched you play pool in there, and it's one of the biggest disappointments of my life. I thought he was going to break into tears.
Was Paul Newman's marriage as perfect as everyone thought? His daughter, Melissa Newman, recently revealed secret letters that could shake the image the world once admired. Did Paul Newman have an affair for 18 months? The twist is at the end. Watch until the end to discover the untold secrets of this legendary star, the discovery that changed everything. Hidden deep in a dusty attic corner of the former home in Westport, Connecticut, that once housed Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward, a vivid and surprising new chapter in what is considered a Hollywood legend has been unearthed. While cleaning out the house with her family, Melissa Newman, the actress's daughter, stumbled upon a forgotten historical treasure, passionate love letters that Paul Newman wrote to Joanne Woodward in the early stages of their relationship. We were rummaging through these tattered bags, almost ready to be thrown in the trash. Melissa recalls of that fateful moment. Just before one bag was about to be thrown away, I reached in, and what I found changed the way I saw my parents forever. Inside the tattered bag, hidden among old papers, rat droppings, and dead moths, were the first 10 letters Paul Newman wrote to Joanne Woodward. Ink faded with age, but still filled with passion and passion. Melissa wasn't looking for secrets or material for a book. She was simply helping clean up. But this discovery, as fate would have it, became the heart of Head Over Heels, Joanne Woodward and Paul Newman, a love affair in words and pictures. The letters are undeniable evidence of Paul's intense passion for Joanne. This is how you woo someone when you're completely smitten, Melissa says. He was so completely smitten, so beautiful and heartfelt. But the content of these letters is not simply sweet talk. They are so intimate and personal that Melissa was forced to be very selective about what she published. I was reading it, and I thought, oh, this is so cute. I have to put this in a book. But a few lines later, I was like, oh, Dad, I can't print this, she recalls with a sheepish smile. Melissa describes the letters as naughty and a little vulgar, but they are not offensive at all. They are bold and sensual, vivid expressions of a love that was both physical and spiritual. Paul Newman loved Joanne not only with his heart, but also with every breath and emotion, a love he called addictive in his posthumously published memoir. One of the most striking passages in the memoir is when Newman frankly admits that the two had a separate room in the house that they jokingly called the FK hut, a private place to maintain intimacy throughout their decades together. In it, he describes Joanne as someone who made him a sexual being, sensual, free-spirited, and true to his instincts. The discovery changed everything, not just for Melissa, but for the way the world viewed Paul Newman's marriage. But what happened in those early days when Paul met Joanne? How did the seemingly quiet affair begin? And was it a secret, as his daughter now admits, the early days of the relationship? The fateful meeting of Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward in 1953 ushered in one of the most complex and fascinating love stories in Hollywood history. A relationship that burned with guilt, passion, and loyalty for more than half a century. The first time they met was not at a lavish party or on a red carpet, but in the stuffy, humid air backstage of a Broadway theater where they were understudying the leads in William Inge's play Picnic. Paul Newman was 28, handsome, suave, yet still with the reserved air of a middle-class Ohio man. Joanne Woodward, 22, was a completely different breed. Sharper, stronger, and more modern than most actresses of the time. Newman admitted in an interview years later that his first impression of Woodward was overwhelming. She was a modern, independent, intelligent woman. I was shy, introverted, and a bit conservative. It took me a long time to convince her that I was not as boring as I looked. While Newman was immediately attracted, Woodward was a bit reserved. According to mutual friends, she was not impressed by Newman's too perfect image. From the way he dressed neatly in suits to the way he always appeared to be proper, but a spark was ignited. And as is often the case in stories of fate, the two could not ignore the growing attraction between them despite Newman's circumstances. By then, Paul Newman was already married. He had married Jackie Witt, a young actress he had met while studying acting after the war, and they had 3 children, Scott, Susan, and Stephanie. Their marriage was still going on when he met Joanne, but it was not a happy one. Even so, Newman was torn between his responsibilities as a husband and father and his burning passion for Joanne Woodward. A clandestine relationship developed, lasting quietly for many years. According to close friends, Newman felt extremely tormented, always questioning his morality, but could not resist the strong attraction to Woodward. Play rehearsals and discussions about roles gradually turned into secret dates where they shared more than just work. What is remarkable is that this relationship was more than just physical attraction. Newman and Woodward connected on a deeper level, intellectually, artistically, and in their worldviews. They were 2 actors who shared a serious passion for acting, a love of the art of theater, and a desire to be recognized for their abilities, not their looks. That bonded them even more tightly and made Newman even more heartbroken when he realized that his current marriage could never satisfy that. Recently, Newman's private love letters to Woodward were discovered in the family attic by their daughter Melissa Newman, pages that had been forgotten for more than half a century. In them, he described his feelings in a passionate, even haunting way, from his longing to see her again, to his admiration for her intelligence and talent, to his regret at having to leave her after each rehearsal. Melissa, reading the letters, exclaimed, "He was so in love with her. His writing was like he was melting with love." Some of the letters were so intimate that Melissa said she could not print them all in the book because they were too raw and seductive. After 5 years of struggling between 2 worlds, Paul Newman finally divorced Jackie Witt in 1958 and married Joanne Woodward that same year, ending a secret affair and beginning a 50-year marriage. However, the complex roots and initial feelings of passion and heartache resonated throughout their lives. And as the newly discovered letters demonstrate, the relationship was never simply a Hollywood love story, but a profound struggle between duty and desire, morality and passion. From its early days of fumbling, passionate, and morally wrenching love, Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward's relationship has evolved into a secretive yet enduring love story in the heart of the film industry. But what is their private life really like behind the stage lights and romantic red carpet photos? What made Paul's daughter finally admit that their secret love was real inside the private life? Beneath the glitz and the bright lights of Hollywood, few would have guessed that Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward lived a passionate, authentic, and equally wild married life in their world. Melissa Newman, while editing her father's memoir, The Extraordinary Life of an Ordinary Man, discovered passionate love letters between Newman and Woodward. When she started reading them, she found them incredibly sweet and romantic. But the more she read them, the more surprised she was by their boldness, to the point of not being able to share them publicly. Although some passages were described by Melissa as vulgar and naughty, she insists they were not obscene. They were simply too intimate, too personal. They showed a man completely absorbed, unguarded by the woman he loved. Through those letters, Paul Newman appeared not as a cold, proud icon, as on screen, but as a passionate, gentle, and vulnerable man towards his wife. One of the most surprising and frequently mentioned details from the post-anniversary memoir is the room the couple cheekily nicknamed the F.K. Hut. It was a private room in their Beverly Hills home that Woodward redecorated. She bought an old twin bed from a thrift store, painted it in vibrant color, and transformed it into a private emotional space. It was done with such love and such gusto, Paul Newman writes. Even when my kids came over, we would go into the FK Hut several nights a week and just be intimate, loud, and vulgar. That bed, the ridiculously large doorknob, all became part of their world. Melissa, as a child, even recalled loving the musky smell of an unmade bed, though she had no idea what the room meant. This detail is not only shocking, but also reflects something deeper, maintaining passion and physical attachment in a marriage that lasts for decades, something rare, not only in the entertainment industry, but also in real life. Paul Newman once described himself as shy, lacking in confidence, even boring before meeting Joanne. But since that fateful encounter, she has become a constant inspiration and companion, both in life and on stage. Joanne gave birth to a sensual creature, Newman wrote. She taught me, encouraged me, loved to experiment. She was not just a wife, but a true co-star. From the emotional roles on screen to the most honest acting in their private room, the two always maintained a connection of body and soul as a way to love each other fully every day. Throughout their 5 decades together, Paul and Joanne never lost their physical intimacy. Even as they entered their twilight years, they still maintained the habit of loving, hugging, and sharing sweet moments, like when they were young. Actor Ansel Elgort once recalled that his driver, who once drove the Newmans, was extremely impressed when he saw the two hugging and kissing in the back seat of the car, giggling and joking like newlyweds, even though they were both over 80 years old at the time. That image, an older couple still full of affection, is proof of a love that does not fade with time. No one would say their relationship was perfect. Newman struggled with insecurities, feeling unworthy of Joanne, who was admired for both her talent and her charisma. But that made their relationship genuine and touching. She was smarter than me, more talented than me, and I knew it. But somehow, she chose me. And I knew I was lucky, Newman said in a memoir. Their love was not built on glamour or public image, but on nights spent together, private whispers and laughs in rooms the world didn't know about. But is such a passionate love as perfect as it seems? Behind the passionate letters and the honey-filled FK Hut are there hidden things that even their daughter, who finally admits her father's secret affair, must face the bitter truth. The cracks behind the perfect image. On the surface, Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward's 50-plus-year marriage was a symbol of enduring love in the tumultuous world of showbiz. But behind the red carpet, smiles and intimate hugs in front of the cameras was a different story, one of long nights of tension, vulnerability, forgiveness, and the relentless effort to keep their family together. From the moment they first met, Joanne Woodward saw something that many people didn't realize at the time. Newman was an alcoholic. I knew from the first glance that he was a drunk, she once candidly said in an interview. But love and the intense attraction to Newman drove her to defy all odds. But the price of that choice was years of pain. In the 1970s, and Newman was at the height of his fame, a generational sex symbol, his personal life was steeped in alcoholism. He once admitted that his drinking had lost control. Family holidays, which should have been bonding moments, became a burden. Woodward recalled that on Christmas Eve, when Newman passed out from too much to drink, she had to do everything for the children, from stuffing stockings to arranging presents under the tree. I felt like the last Christian martyr, she recalled bitterly. Newman's drinking was not only a strain on their marriage, but it was a real danger. One time, Joanne panicked when she found him unconscious and bleeding from the head after falling out of bed. It wasn't the only time, but it was the final straw. She decided to leave packing her daughters out of the house and driving straight to their Malibu mansion. Newman, desperate, followed them, spending several nights in the car in the yard just to be near them. Eventually, they came to a compromise. He would give up hard liquor and drink only beer. But alcohol wasn't the only challenge in the tumultuous marriage. In the late 1960s, when Paul Newman was at the height of his career, with his role in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, another shadow crept into his marriage to Joanne Woodward, an 18-month affair with entertainment reporter Nancy Bacon. The affair was kept quiet, but it couldn't be hidden forever. Whispers began to circulate in Hollywood circles and quickly became a hot rumor in the entertainment press. Instead of responding with anger or an official statement, the couple took out a strange but ingenious way. They took out a full-page ad in the Los Angeles Times poking fun at the public and the press turning the affair into a self-deprecating joke. It was a clever ploy, a combination of media prestige and control of the image of one of Hollywood's most powerful couples. But behind the drama was a stark truth. Years later, Nancy Bacon confirmed to the press that the affair between her and Newman was real, a secret that, in her words, was the most poorly kept secret in Hollywood. She described Newman as a charming man torn between loyalty to his wife and his lust between his image as a model man and his dark side. Joanne Woodward, though she never spoke publicly about the affair, is said to have known what had happened. She was not blind, and her silence was not a sign of stupidity or weakness. It was a choice, a sacrifice for her family, for her children, and perhaps for the love she still felt for Newman despite his betrayal. But that doesn't mean she wasn't in pain. Their daughter, Melissa Newman, once shared in an interview that her mother knew she was taking a risk by continuing to live with a man who had betrayed her trust. One day, while Joanne was cleaning the bathroom, she accidentally discovered a book that seemed harmless until she flipped through the first few pages and realized it was written by a woman who had had an affair with Newman. The book contained lines full of private innuendo, unmistakable descriptions, as if it were written to provoke, to bring up old pain. It was hidden away in a drawer where no one expected it, but it was enough to stir up all the hurt she had tried to bury. The memory of that moment, according to Melissa, left a deep scar in the heart of her already resilient mother. She didn't scream, didn't question, but from that day on, in her EI, there was always a thin layer of mist mixed with fatigue, endurance, and a smoldering loneliness that never disappeared. Melissa said in an appearance on a podcast celebrating her parents, "There's a fairy tale about my parents. It's been told and retold. They fell in love at first sight, were married for more than 50 years, and they've been through everything together. But inside, it wasn't all cake and ice cream. There were dark corners. There was a tension that simmered in the house. It came and went like the tides. My mother always tried to be strong, but I know she cried a lot, often silently. That tension wasn't always obvious, but it was there in my mother's eyes, when she saw my father sitting pensively over a beer at the end of the day in her unannounced absences, or in the way she quietly walked out of a room after hearing a careless remark from her husband. To outsiders, they were Hollywood's golden couple. But in that very house, there were quiet days, and there were also long nights when only small sobs could be heard from the bedroom, a sound that their children would never forget. What made the couple special, though, was their inner strength, especially Joanne, who kept the family together when things seemed to be falling apart. My mom was the one who always drew the line, Melissa recalls. She said, "Either you change or I'm leaving." And she meant it. That determination, along with a selfless and loving heart for her children, helped keep Newman from sliding further. Clea, the youngest daughter, recalls that her father worked hard to change. He worked on himself. And he eventually made it to the other side. Their marriage, if only seen through public photos, would be the envy of many. But what made it work wasn't that it was perfect. It was that both of them were willing to fight to keep it going. With love, forgiveness, and a lot of pain, they wrote a marriage story that is not a fairy tale, but a true one. Painful, but beautiful in its way. If it were you, would you forgive someone who cheated on you long as they still loved you? Has the story of Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward changed your view of Hollywood's fairy tale love stories? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. We love to hear from you. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more interesting updates. Thank you, and see you in the next videos.